All right, it's time for the Wrestling Perspective podcast. I'm Dennis Farrell. He's Petey Williams.
How's she going, eh?
There it is. It's going great, Petey. Before you and I get in some wrestling talk and take our very first interview, let's be honest with ourselves. I did one when you were not here with Flying Brian II, which I don't really count that as our first interview because you were not there and he kind of replaced you. But this
Yeah.
James Ellsworth is our first interview.
As a team, it's a team effort. We're gonna tag team James Ellsworth, and I'm excited about it.
Boy, I hope he's just as excited as we are. Is that so?
I'm sure he is. When I bumped into him like a month ago, or in January, I should say, at Destiny, he said a couple lines from our podcast verbatim that I don't even remember, but then I did remember it when he said the lines, and I was like, yeah, we did. So I mean, he listens and he's a fan of the podcast. So I mean, there's no reason why he shouldn't be excited.
So before we get to Ellsworth, before we talk about some of the burning issues for this week, you and I have a little bit of housekeeping to do. Listen, we had a great run here at Wrestling Inc. as we wrap up our last 2 weeks, Ellsworth, and then next week we have Jeff Jarrett as our interview. We're wrapping up our run with Wrestling Inc. It's mutual. It's amicable. I feel like if we want to come back, the doors would be wide open to us. There was no ill will towards our decision to kind of move on. But it's a decision we made, and they are very supportive of us. Since making that decision, we've really started to promote our own podcast feed. So we're very appreciative of everybody who's gone out and subscribed to the Wrestling Perspective podcast. PD, let me tell you how blown away I am at what our fans have done. Are you ready for this?
Yeah, shoot.
Monday, we were not even anywhere on the landscape of well-known podcasts. We were under the Wrestling Inc. umbrella, which was up in the rankings. So we, the Wrestling Perspective, we did not have a foothold of force on the podcast rankings. Since announcing the split and really starting to promote our iTunes feed, which you can go over to WrestlingPerspectivePodcast.com. Please rate 5 stars, subscribe to the podcast. That helps us move up the rankings. We're now at number 15 on iTunes for wrestling podcasts. Top 15.
15. I mean, we'll probably hit the number one spot by like what, Friday or something? A couple days. I mean, no, I'm just kidding.
But we couldn't do this without the fans.
Yeah, no, definitely. We greatly appreciate it. And Wrestling Inc.'s been great to us. I mean, it's good to, be able to team up with, and do business anytime for, I mean, it works both ways. Like they have somebody that they have us on their website, and then, we're on their website. It works hand in hand. So, it was mutual. I'm sure, they'll move on, get another podcast, stuff like that. And, we'll move on, and it's going to be good for everybody.
It's almost like the Shield. In 2 years, we'll come back, reunite, and take down the Miz Taraj.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, and I hate breakup. Like, I hope us and Wrestling Inc. can still be friends. So, yeah.
Very, very amicable. We gave them a 2-week notice, so it wasn't like we're leaving, poof, gone. But we
give them 15 days notice because we're number 15 right now on iTunes.
But if you're listening on Wrestling Inc. and you're a fan of this podcast, you follow us. We decided just to kind of go out on our own and test the water, see how we do, and we need your help. Come subscribe. Go to WrestlingPerspectivePodcast.com. There you can find our Facebook page, our Twitter accounts. There are links to iTunes. If you don't listen on to iTunes, there's Stitcher, and we're on Tuned In too. So I appreciate if you guys just head over, subscribe to us. If not, you can tweet PD or myself. PD, where can people reach out to you?
On Twitter at IPDWilliams.
And you can reach out to me at Dennis77 Farrell, Farrell. But thank you guys for we were over there for a little bit longer than a year. It was a great run. We look, just no ill will. Sometimes you just have to move on and freshen things up, and that's kind of what you and I are doing.
Yeah, it's always you don't want your character to get stale. So just like us, we don't want our wrestling perspective podcast to get stale. And like over the next 2 weeks, I mean, I know we're leaving Wrestling Inc., but we don't really have guests, and now we're already hitting it off with Ellsworth next week, and with more guests to come.
Ellsworth tonight.
Oh yeah, that's right, tonight. What? Oh, next week is something else. I'm sorry.
Why don't you go ahead and talk about next week?
No, you know what? Should I?
Yeah.
Well, next week we'll have my uncle on the show, and my uncle being Uncle Jeff Jarrett, and I'm excited for that. He's always been my boss and stuff like that, and now he's not, and we could talk like regular people, and of course he's just been. He's going to be inducted to the WWE Hall of Fame, which shocked everybody. And it should be an interesting podcast. Some of the questions we ask and, his perspective on what's going on. So it should be interesting how the Hall of Fame all came about and stuff like that. And, we don't want to spoil anything for you. So let's just leave it at that. But we're really excited about Uncle Jeff being on.
On our way.
I don't know if I could call him Uncle Jeff now.
I think you can.
I mean, I think he'll always be my uncle. But I think I still call him Uncle Jeff.
I think you should. I think that's perfect. So now let's get into some wrestling talk as we've spent 6 minutes doing some house cleaning, which, as we said one more time, we appreciate you guys, the fans. We really do. Tweets, if you've listened to any past podcasts, we give everybody shout outs because we're just excited someone decided to listen to us with all the options out there. So last time we kissed you, the fans' butts, but thank you very much. As next week we do a hill turn and hit you with the chair. So
yeah, right. Big swerve.
We tricked you. All right.
Yeah.
You and I talked about this when this happened. You were at the tapings, the Sami Callihan thing, and he has been taking a beating from professionals on Twitter. Cassius Ohno jumped in on him. You had Jim Cornette bash him. You were there at the tapings. You were there when it happened. Let's talk about the Sami Callihan thing from a fan's point of view, me, and from a professional point of view, you. I'll let you start off. After it happened, and it seemed like even as you kind of see him, it felt like the air was sucked out of the arena.
Yeah. So, first, did I talk about any of this at all on any of our podcasts?
That was a weird thing. 3 weeks ago, you recorded a podcast like the night after that happened, and you were like, dude, he took a vicious bat to the face.
And what else did I say on it?
You left it kind of like that. I think you talked about it. You said he went to the hospital or something like that.
Did I say Sammy's reaction or anything?
No.
I didn't?
Mm-mm.
Interesting. So, yeah, I was there. It happened. Everybody in the locker room was like, oh, and like Eddie immediately got up from the mat and like walked to the back. And it all happened afterwards. I text my wife and I'm like, hey, I just witnessed a felonious assault. And she was like, what? And I explained the situation and she was like, oh, that's messed up. And, and I'll just, I don't know if Sami will give me heat for saying this, but I'll just say like how it happened. All right. He gets to the back. Eddie sits down. They're screaming for the trainers to come over, and they get, medical care rendered to him and stuff like that. And Sami right there was like kneeling down in front of him, like apologizing, like so remorseful and sorry and all that kind of stuff.
That's what he should be. Let's be honest. That was probably a no-brainer.
That's what happened. Like, I know when I got my orbital bone broken, when Jimmy Rave broke it and, kneed me in the face, like right away, super remorseful and sorry, went to the hospital with me, all that kind of stuff. And we're like best buds, you know what I mean? So, and I didn't hold it against him. I know what happens. I've done the move with him like dozens of times. And I think maybe I just got too comfortable with him and I didn't protect myself like I should. And accidents happen. And Maybe the spot was set up wrong with Sami and Eddie. Who knows? But it turned out like how it turned out. And Sami was really remorseful and sorry and all that kind of stuff. And he was scheduled for a match because we do several tapings in one day. And he was scheduled for a match later on that evening. And they had to pull him from that match, or I think they scrapped the match, whatever the case may be, because he wasn't right. Like, I mean, like he was so down on himself and he couldn't get his head in the game because he felt bad for what he did. So now I'm looking at this and, I like TMZ Sports reports that they catch up with Sami and, he's not sorry and stuff like that, which I get it because, we look at professional wrestling now and how social media is with Twitter and stuff like that. And you see the character you see on TV. And then as soon as you turn to social media, it's a different character. It's like the wrestlers, like let's say like a Braun Strowman or something, who plays this monster on TV. And then he might have a social media account where he's, holding his kids in his hand, being a good dad. I don't even know if he has kids or whatever, but I'm just saying, it's like, that's not the Braun Strowman I know. The Braun Strowman I know is on TV and he destroys everybody. So you got Sami, and I want to say and I don't know, I haven't talked to Sami since last TV tapings, but you would think he's just playing his character up. Like, no, I'm not remorseful. He deserves what he got. I don't feel bad for it, all that kind of stuff, which is great for the wrestling business because immediately on TV, you would think Sami would be like, Eddie Edwards, I hate you. You deserve that baseball bat, all that kind of stuff. But then to turn around, most people on social media say, oh, I'm so sorry for what I've done, blah, 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 blah. So then people don't really buy into the storyline because they know it's fake, right? Mm-hmm. So you got Sami playing up the storyline a la it's like 1970s when the kayfabe was like, still a thing and, guys wouldn't travel with each other and all that kind of stuff. And if you broke your arm in an angle, you're wearing that cast for like 6 months, Bob Orton. Like, that's just what you did to protect the business and stuff and make people believe in the storyline more. So now you got Sami actually playing his character on social media saying he's not sorry and stuff like that. And then you got guys, and I'm hoping, Jim Cornette's just helping the angle, and same with Chris Hero, just helping the angle, saying, how dare you not be ashamed and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, are you guys serious right now?
I think they're serious.
I'm like, can you not tell? What's that?
I think they're serious. Here's what I think. Other than you saying, hey, man, I saw him on the knee and apologizing, which I think we all know in real life that happened. I feel like he was like, he goes on social media, probably with the blessings or even urged from management, like, dude, this is going to draw eyes. You start pulling this up immediately. Maybe even with the blessing of Eddie Edwards, with what's good for this is what's good for the money, and this is good for money. Everybody don't know that. Yeah, I didn't know he apologized until you just told me. People listening right now did not know he apologized until you just told them. So, yeah, Cornette loves to shoot his mouth off. I'm not breaking any news or giving you any spoiler alerts. He just loves to shoot his mouth off. He's probably wrapped up in it.
How though? Those guys are really smart guys in the wrestling business. They should know immediately when that happened. Okay, now think about this, okay? Really, really think about it. If Sami gets to the back, okay, after he hit a guy in the head with a baseball bat and does not apologize, don't you think management would be like, I don't know if we want this guy on our team. Let's can him. But seriously.
But Cornette's comments were based around the incident, not the apology.
That's true.
Cornette really bashed him for the incidents. That was Bush League and a bunch of other stuff. You can find it, but just imagine the worst things Jim Cornette can say that starts with an F word and throw it in a tweet for him. And that's kind of what he said about Callihan, not talented. That's a horrible mistake. Shouldn't be in the business. That kind of stuff. I don't know if that's true or not. It looked like, and this is from my point of view, it looked like that chair was over Edwards' Boy, Sami was going to take it and hit the chair. Maybe something. I don't know. I don't know if
It was a bad spot. It was poorly set up. Looking back at it, and you're like, oh, you guys shouldn't even have attempted to do it that way. There's so much that could go wrong. You could have hit him in the stomach with a baseball bat, and it could have meant the same thing as long as the guy sold it properly. I mean, yeah, no, I agree. It was poorly set up, the spot. And, for Jim Cornette, okay, yeah, we can say it's Bush League if that's the way he feels. But, to not know that Sami's just playing up this angle, and it is with Eddie's blessing, because you know what, okay, I'll put it this way. If Sami hit me in the head with a baseball bat, and I'm in Eddie Edwards' shoes right now, right, I would be like, yeah, let's have him play this up. That way, when we get our hands on each other, this angle is going to be so hot. It's going to be great for both of those guys in the angle, and everybody in the look at it. They aired it beforehand saying people knew what happened. So then it was our highest rated show in a very long time because people wanted to see it. So there's hype around this. So, and then Sami's playing it up. So I'm just, I don't know. I mean, I think wrestlers use social media all wrong because they play a character on television. And then even if they say something politically incorrect on social media, everybody holds it against them. But if they say something politically incorrect on television, oh, it's their character. Well, why can't their character be social media too? I don't get it. I think it's done wrong.
I got two questions. Two follow up from what you said. Question number one. Do you remember what Edward's feelings were towards Sami after that incident? Do you hey, it's all right, don't worry about it, or was he just out of it and didn't really respond?
I'm sure the way I saw it, because I was right there afterwards, and I've been in that spot. When you get hurt, yeah, you're pissed. And it's nice to hear when somebody says, "Man, I'm so sorry," and then, they're by your side. They don't just go sorry, and because then you're a jerk if you do that. Mm-hmm. But then again, you do want some space, and you don't want them to keep apologizing. Because you still need you're hurt, and you need to not blow off some steam, but just to let it sink in kind of deal. So he wasn't up in arms, upset or anything like that. He couldn't do much. He was holding an ice pack over his eye, and they were trying to get him bandaged up and all that kind of stuff before the ambulance came. But I'm pretty sure he was disappointed. Anytime you get hurt, you're going to be taken off the show, especially getting a baseball bat. You're hoping that your vision, you're just thinking in the future too. It's this is going to affect my vision for the rest of my life and all this kind of stuff. Is this going to have further implications? So, but it was fine. I mean, he wasn't upset. Or he didn't show that he was upset, I should say. I don't know if he was upset. So that's how it was.
Were they both at the last set of tapings?
That happened at the last set of tapings in January.
Right. Didn't you just do something?
Yeah, that's it. No, that wasn't. So the tapings I was at, that was for one night only. Neither of those guys were there. It was more a slew of local talent mixed with Impact talent.
All right. I didn't know if you've seen them two together in public since then. And my last question on this topic before we move on and roll towards James Ellsworth, if wrestlers use their Twitter like their wrestling characters, do you think that could go and help wrestling bring back kayfabe? Does that make sense?
I mean, I think that's how it should be done. But the thing is, we live in this world now that anything you put on social media can be any sentence or anything can be misconstrued as so politically incorrect that you could get released from your job pretty much. How dare you put that? There's just the line is so I just don't even know how to put it. It would be great if WWE or Impact or whatever understood, like, hey, let's say me, Petey Williams. I don't have much of a character except for being pro Canada, but I do, tweet a lot of pro Canada things. But like, it's like me, Petey Williams. If I say something offensive to, like, let's say Americans, I want them to know, like, hey, it's part of my character, not me as Pete. Because I've lived in the U.S. for over 10 years now, so it's not like I'm saying it, like, bashing anything about America. Like, I live here, my kids are American. They were born here, all of them. So it would be nice, because that would help kayfabe, definitely. It would totally bring it back. And I think it would be better if we were able to blur the lines without having a fear of, like, consequences and repercussions and stuff like that. Like, if I look at a Kevin Owens, he should be able to badmouth and say his character and stuff like that. But then also he should be able to say something that he feels as a person as well. And you're like, oh, was that the character or the person? I don't know. And that's, like, just way more intriguing. And they shouldn't hold that stuff against them.
Let's talk.
Like, I mean, management shouldn't hold it against them. Management, like.
Let's move on. We have a busy show, and we're going to hit on a lot of points. So you and I had a discussion. Well, actually, on the last podcast you were not on, me and one of my good friends, Joe Pizzapia, we were kind of talking about the Mount Rushmore, okay? And not so much the best wrestler or the best talker, but the best WWE superstar. Not, we're talking social media, outside the ring, inside the ring, the best all-around WWE superstar. You took exception, because I said number one kind of has to be Hulk Hogan. He's kind of grandfathered into that number one spot. Whether you like it or not, Hulkamania, there was nothing bigger than Hulkamania, and maybe still nothing will ever reach that height. Hulkamania brought wrestling into the mainstream.
Yep.
The Rock, he's was part of the Attitude Era. He transcended wrestling. He's, although I'm not a big fan of many of his movies he's done, the Rampage really, and San Andreas, somehow he still gets pretty decent acting gigs. So you have to put him on that level too. I don't remember who I had at 3, but this is where you took exception to what I had to say. I put John Cena ahead of Stone Cold Steve Austin. And
that's what it was, yeah.
And you did not agree with that.
I think when I first interpreted it, it was like, who had the biggest impact on the world of wrestling.
And that could be part of the equation too.
Yeah, it was something like that. And that's what I look at. Like the biggest impact, like where wrestling would be today, or how the history of wrestling would have been changed if it weren't for these individuals. And when you put John Cena in front of Stone Cold, I did take exception to it. No, first off, it's not defending Stone Cold like he was my favorite, because when it was the Rock and Stone Cold era, you were either on the Rock side or you were on Stone Cold side. And I was always that guy on the Rock side. So it's not like I'm sticking up for Stone Cold, but I do recognize what he's done for this business. And the reason why I took exception to it is because when you look at when, Bret Hart left and all that kind of stuff, you look at WWE is almost out of business pretty much. They were on their way down. They were losing the ratings war and stuff like that. And what happened was you had Stone Cold, this guy or whatever, and he was the beginning of it and turned around wrestling as we know it today. And then that's the blossom of the Attitude Era. Then obviously The Rock, rose in on that and all that kind of stuff and took it to the next level. And, I think it helped Stone Cold's character that he was able to feud with The Rock and Vince and all that kind of stuff. But if it wasn't for Stone Cold and people getting behind him, WWE could have very possibly went out of business. There was a great chance WCW could have ended up winning this, and then there would be no WWE right now. So that's why I put Stone Cold pretty high on that list, because I recognize what he's done for WWE and, the entertainment business of wrestling.
I agree with everything you said. Stone Cold was the linchpin, and Stone Cold made more money. Stone Cold had more memorable feuds. I get all that stuff. But when I think of WWE Superstar, John Cena had a better acting career. Continues to act.
Oh, yeah.
John Cena.
If we're just talking about superstars, yeah, sure. Stone Cold was wrestling and,
right.
But that's it.
But here's another couple factors here. And John Cena has spent more time at the top of his industry than I think Stone Cold did. Stone Cold's career, unfortunately, was cut short by injuries. He walked out for, almost a year, I think. I don't remember the exact time he walked out. John Cena has headlined, I believe, more pay-per-views. He's headlined more WrestleManias than Stone Cold. John Cena has one less Royal Rumble win. I think when you put all the ingredients into the pot, when you talk about WWE Superstar, you have to put... Look, Stone Cold was a better talker, a better wrestler, a better entertainer. But when you throw everything into this pot, I think you have to give John Cena a little bit more credit than people give him on his legacy in this industry.
No, I agree. It's just that I think if this is the way I put it, if there was no Hulk Hogan, would wrestling be where it's at today?
No.
If there was no Stone Cold Steve Austin, would wrestling be where it's at today? If there was no John Cena, would wrestling be where it's at today? Possibly, because there would have been somebody else to fill his shoes. I don't feel like, because John Cena, he was always on top in an industry where WWE didn't really have any competition. Credit. John Cena's been, had a longer on top than Hulk Hogan. Anybody. He's been the longest on top in WWE. But it's almost like, where else? I feel like it's a struggling business since the Attitude Era when it comes to like who's going to be our next top guy, and they're trying to push guys into that spot. You look at Roman Reigns now; they're trying to do it, and people just aren't biting on it and stuff like that. It's not happening organically. When Stone Cold did it, it happened so organically, and same with The Rock. So organic, like it was just a thing that happened. Like people just on their side, and it just makes you wonder, like, would this business be different for the better or for the worse without John Cena?
Here's what some of the other fans over at Wrestling Perspective Podcast on Facebook had to say. Adam Patrick said, The Undertaker, John Cena, Stone Cold, The Rock, and Triple H. I'm not sure if that's in any order, so we don't have to really discuss the order that they wrote it down. Rob McNeely says, DDP should be in this discussion for his DDP yoga as well as helping Jake and Razor Ramon. How do you feel about that? Does DDP yoga do enough to put Diamond Dallas Page on this map of the Mount Rushmore of superstars?
No, definitely not. I would say if there was a Mount Rushmore of superstars that helped other superstars get straight again, then he would definitely be number one. But we're just looking at like
everything, in, out.
Yeah, what we're looking at.
John says The Rock, Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, Undertaker, and Bret Hart. I don't know if I could put Bret Hart in that.
I wouldn't, as much as I like Bret Hart and he's like my favorite, I wouldn't put him there because, again, it's the same thing, almost like the John Cena thing. Like, Hogan left, Macho Man left, like all their top stars, and they had to create new stars. And it's like, well, Bret's working his way up, and then he hit that, top peak and stuff like that, and he had a good run when he was pro Canada and stuff like that. Like that really changed the Canada versus U.S. angle that I still use to this very day.
Did you ever?
But that was super hot. What's that?
Did you ever meet your boy
Bret?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, many times. Yeah, many times. Been on many shows with them and stuff like that. But then Bret, right before the ratings turned, he went to WCW, and almost immediately WWE had the ratings again. So it's not like he was
an influencer,
anything huge. I mean, yeah, and the biggest thing he'll be remembered for is the Montreal Screwjob. That's the biggest thing. Like when 50 years from now, they'll say Bret Hart. Oh, wasn't he that guy in that Montreal screw job?
That makes sense. Nate Williams says Heath Slater, Kiss Demon, Brad Armstrong, Mass Transit, and Major Guns.
Yep, I would agree. Major Guns number one. Yep.
Colin Westrate what says Austin, Goldberg, Strowman, Lesnar, and Macho Man. Way too early for Strowman, and
yep.
I don't think you can put Brock, as big of a beast as he is, the lack of consistency in his contract, in years in service, in gaps between years into WWE, really for me takes is a minus towards this category.
Yeah, I wouldn't say Brock's up there on the Mount Rushmore, but he's definitely he's one of the most successful, I would say the most successful in a, I don't like calling it a real sport, but like a real sport outside of wrestling. So, yeah, I mean, he's up there. I just wouldn't say that he had an impact on professional wrestling. Like, if there was no Brock Lesnar, I don't think wrestling would be any much different. Like, I don't think he had a lot to contribute when it comes to changing the way wrestling is.
I agree.
Maybe a little bit in the sense that, he brought a more, when he came back from UFC, and I remember when he feuded with Cena, it was kind of like, it was a lot more intriguing because he had that, I'm a legit badass in real life, under his belt now. So it did add another element to his character, that's for sure.
Jeff McCall says Lex Luger, the Road Warriors, John Cena, Sting, and Petey Williams. I think it's only because it's your podcast.
Probably. And the fact that, I could say I contributed to wrestling, not like in the ways that these other guys had, but I remember just Sami Callihan saying to me, he's like, hey, you started a revolution in pro wrestling. He's like, you took a video game move that's unheard of and made it an actual real life professional wrestling move that's used all the time now. So I'm like, oh, cool. I did have a little hand in something in wrestling, at least, that I could say.
And then
I thought that was cool.
And then Sammy hit you in the face with a bat.
Yeah, then he hit me in the face with a bat and said, take that.
I'm sorry, Sammy, if you ever listen to this, I'm sorry. It was too easy. I had it. There was this softball right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was gonna say this at the top of the show when we were being mushy about the friends, about our fans and everything.
Yeah.
When you and I started this podcast, I came to you. You were not sure about it, and you finally said, "Hey, all right, I'll do 1, 2, maybe 3 episodes and see how it goes." And I've never heard back from you, but do you think you'll stick around?
I don't know. I might do 4 or 5, and then maybe you can put the franchise tag on me, and then I'll stick around for another year. I don't know.
We also had one more question before we get James Ellsworth, what everybody's here for, over at the Facebook page was, and let's talk tag teams. This was the post. By the way, our good friend Russ is doing some social media work over there at our Facebook page, so go over there and be interactive. But your personal favorites of tag teams, and he broke his into 2 tier. Tier 1, Midnight Express, Rock and Roll Express, Steiner's, Freebirds, Road Warriors. Tier 2, Doom, Demolition, Heart Foundation, Harlem Heat, and Guilty Pleasure was the Powers of Pain. Any tag teams that he mentioned?
That?
Any tag teams that he mentioned that's not on that list that you feel like should be there?
Oh man, that's a good question. I don't know, man. I was a huge fan of Demolition. I look back at it now, and their matches were so simple. Tag teams, huh? I mean,
here's the problem with this. He left off the 4 Horsemen. If you're gonna put the Freebirds on there, and there were 3 of them, you have to put the 4 Horsemen somewhere. Arn Anderson and Ole or Arn and whoever else tagged with him at that time. But the 4 Horsemen should be on that list.
Yeah, they should be on that list. I'm trying to think of who else would be like Harlem Heat, like anybody that's like brothers, legit brothers in real life. like Steiner Brothers, Harlem Heat, and stuff like that. They're going to be on the list because, they're legit brothers. I don't know. That's a good question because usually tag teams nowadays, they're like not even around for that long. So when you look at tag teams like that, they'll split up, they'll come back together, all that kind of stuff. Like, I mean, should you mention like the New Age Outlaws? Like, I don't know. Like they were some of the hottest. They're like a hottest selling like tag team for the longest time. Man, that's good. I haven't got to think about that and get back to it on the tag teams.
Would you put beer money on that list somewhere?
No.
No. It was a good
I would
question.
put like. No, I mean I would put Team Canada before beer money. Jeez. No, I mean beer money. I mean they were together for a little bit, but I mean, and they were a good tag team. It was almost like, when they have like, okay, we'll put it this way. The Bar right now, Sheamus and Cesaro, they were like two single wrestlers that were like, oh, if we don't do something with these guys, they'll get lost in mid-card. So they put them together, and now they're like the top tag team. Same thing with beer money. It's like, okay, these are two guys that have like world, championship written all over them. But I know right now they're going to get lost in mid-card, so let's put them together, see what happens. And they became a good tag team. Like I would put like teams like that haven't made it to like the level of WWE and WCW and stuff like that, like the Young Bucks,
Yes.
and like the Motor City Machine Guns, the Briscoes, teams like that. I think they're great. I mean, it depends what we're looking at, but I think they're great tag team wrestlers.
Adam Patrick put the Briscoes on his list on the tier 2, which I think they should be there. But
they've been around forever, like since the early 2000s or whatever.
Here's the one thing. Out of 10 comments we had on this on their Facebook page, not one of them put the Rockers.
It's because they had one tag title run that got taken back for one reason or another. I mean, Shawn Michaels and Triple H were a more successful tag team than Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty.
Ooh, that's interesting because when I think of the Rockers, I think they were out there doing high flying stuff, which I don't know if it was. And I'm looking through this through kid eyes because I was a kid when this happened. At that time, I'm not sure if I remember seeing a ton of people doing that kind of stuff.
Oh no, not on television. Anyways, it was probably done like in territories or whatever the case may be. But no, right. I mean when they came over from, I don't know if they were from NWA, AWA. I can't remember where they were from. And when they came over, they were like the high flyer guys, So.
Well, then they had a look that not a ton of people had. I think they were a more exaggerated version of like the Rock and Roll Express.
Yeah, like a new version, a younger version of the Rock and Roll Express. No, I agree. I just wouldn't put them as top tag teams because, by the time they got rolling in WWE, after a few years, they split up and went their separate ways. And
I wouldn't put them there either, by the way. I was just shocked that I didn't see, out of 10 comments, not one of them put that tag team on there.
Yeah, you would think that somebody would put, especially if you're putting like Demolition or something like that, even though they had a bunch of title runs, you would think they put the Rockers there just because Shawn Michaels came out of the Rockers. And Shawn Michaels, I'm surprised nobody put Shawn Michaels on their top 5 list of the Mount Rushmore, which surprised me as well. Because I'll meet a lot of actual, professional wrestlers that say Shawn Michaels is, one of the best that ever set foot in the ring, pretty much.
I agree. I was also disappointed only one person put Doom on there. And Doom, by far, is one of my favorite tag teams of all time. I think it was 89, maybe 90. I was watching Starrcade the other day, and Doom versus Four Horsemen in a street fight match was... Oh, no, it was Great American Bash. I'm going to have to go back through my tweet and look at that up. But Doom versus the Four Horsemen were one of the best matches of that year.
I haven't seen it, but, I mean, if you're saying so, then okay.
Let me look. I'm going through here. Let's see here on my tweets. Petey Williams. I've got to go through and find it because all I seem to tweet is you. All right.
Oh, of course.
It was Starcade 90. That was the main event in that. It was Sting versus the Black Scorpion, which I'm still embarrassed to admit is still one of my all-time favorite storylines because as a kid when it happened, and I went back and watched it, and sure, it's cheesy and goofy, but man, I still liked it.
Starcade 90,
Yes.
1990.
Starcade 1990. Watch it.
All right,
If you
I'll have to watch that.
The Doom versus the Four Horsemen street fight, phenomenal.
All right.
So,
All right.
do you think we should bring in our guest?
Now we can bring in our guest.
Okay, Petey, here we are. I'm excited. Our very first guest and somebody that I've been high on for so long. Pete, it's James Ellsworth joining us for the first time on our little podcast.
James,
what's up, guys?
What's going
Happy
on,
to
buddy?
be here.
It's great. This is awesome. Petey had told me a story about how you had you had kind of listened to the podcast once, and I'll be honest, it made me feel awesome. I tweeted you, and I think you were like, "Oh man, that's cool, thank you." But dude, thank you so much for listening.
Yeah, man, I was on a road trip. I can't remember where I was going, but I don't know. I just saw a tweet about it. And I was like, "Yeah, this is different. I haven't listened to this yet." And I went ahead and put it on, and just listened to the whole thing, liked it, and didn't realize you guys it was an episode you were talking about me, so that was cool. And appreciate the shout out.
See, I'm giggling now, Pete.
Yeah. No. Hey, James, do you listen to any wrestling podcasts? I don't really listen to any. I mean, I listen to a few of Cabanas and stuff like that. Is there any that you listen to?
Yeah, I listened to the Something to Wrestle With Pritchard and Conrad. That's a real fun one. Jericho's, of course. He's my buddy, so I always talk as Jericho. I'll listen to his. Just when I'm on road trips, especially if you're by yourself on a road trip, they're good to listen to. And, to pass the time. So, yeah, I try to get in as many as possible. And, I'll try a new one every now and then, when I haven't heard. Steve Austin's podcast. There's a bunch of them out there. And I'll listen to everyone at least once.
Outside of wrestling, what are some other podcasts you listen to?
Well, none. It's all right.
So I have to ask you, you've lived every little boy's dream, even just being in a WWE, WWF wrestling ring just once. How did the second run come about? We all remember the Braun Strowman. Afterwards, how did that come about between you and the WWE?
Well, they kept in contact with me ever since the Strowman match. I wasn't on TV again for 6 weeks, but during that 6-week period, they kept in contact with me every week. Hey, we may have something for you this week, or we may have something for you at SummerSlam, and just every week. 6 weeks is a long time. So by the 5th week, I was like, man, I guess this ain't happening. I guess they were probably paying attention to the internet and all the fans, having all the fun with the memes and everything. And I know Vince was a fan of my performance that night with Strowman, so they kept in touch with me. And so finally they came to Philly, which is an hour and a half where I live in Baltimore, for SmackDown. They used me, they booked me in a tag match. It was supposed to be me and AJ against Cena and Ambrose, and The Miz came out and beat me up on the ramp, and that was my second appearance there.
I'll be honest, there are 2 people on this podcast right now that have beaten AJ Styles, and one of them's not me.
I think we talked about this on our one of our other podcasts, Dennis. Your win-loss record, your percentage, is greater than mine when it comes to beating AJ Styles. So kudos to you, James.
Yeah, I think it's 75%, something like that.
Yeah, man.
I mean,
you only lost him once, right?
Yeah, when we had the title match after TLC, when the whole story with TLC, which it was a good story. I don't think it got taught as well as it could have. Where I pushed the ladder over on Ambrose when he was on top of the ladder, about to beat AJ for the WWE Championship. I pushed the ladder over, and he went through tables. The reason being because I in my head, I thought I could beat AJ Styles again and become champion. It was nothing against Dean Ambrose. I just thought I could beat AJ and be the champion. Was the story, which we like talked about it on Talking Smack. It would have been cooler. AJ got hurt for a little bit there, like he tweaked his ankle, so we never really got this story across. Other than when he came back, he beat me in like 20 seconds because Ambrose wasn't out there to help me. And it was a great story and a lot of fun.
All right, I'm going to be fanboy here for just 2 seconds. I have to ask you, what were some of the things that maybe the fans would be, I don't know if I'd use the word shocked, but just in wonderment about just everyday life on the road or even backstage with the WWE?
It's just so busy, man. Like it never ends, which it's cool. It's cool. I like to be busy. Like I hate when I have downtime. But, like, yeah, you get up in the morning, you hurry up and get your gym in, you hurry up and get a meal in, and then you're at the building. And then, you're at, like, for TV, you're at the building, like, from 1 o'clock until 11 o'clock at night, for Raw or SmackDown or a pay-per-view. So it's just, and, like, when you're there, you're waiting to see what you're doing, and then you're going over what you're doing, and it's live TV, so there's no room for error. So you have to really rehearse and practice what you're going to do on TV that night, and it's just very, very busy.
No, is it anything? Because I've never worked for WWE, but I've worked many times for Impact. It feels like you get there at call time, like 12, 1 o'clock. Catering's pretty much there. You say hi to everybody. And then you're kind of waiting to see it. Like, is it like, I feel like I'm waiting around till at least like maybe 3 o'clock. Like if I don't have any even if you have any like pre-tapes, like, yeah, we need you on the set at 2:30, but 2:30 never rolls around. It's always like 3 because somebody's late or whatever the case may be. Is it like you hurry up and wait for the first couple hours and after that it's just like a mad rush of everything? Is it like that over there?
Yeah, but pretty much. You like sometimes you don't know what you're doing until 5 o'clock. Like you don't like it. It depends on the day. It depends on how many times they rewrite the show and like what Vince, because Vince obviously finalizes everything, so you got to wait on him. And it's just. But once you do find out what you're doing and set in stone, it gets hectic from there because then you're going over it, and like again, as you know, Petey, you've done live TV. Like there's no room for error, so you're just making sure everything goes well in rehearsal. So when you do it on live TV, it goes well too.
What have you learned from WWE that will help you evolve the James Ellsworth character on the indies?
Oh man, like people have like short attention spans these days. So like you can't like cut a 15-minute promo. Like if you do that on the indies, like people are going to get bored and just walk and get food or just like get your point over in 2 minutes or less and move on to the next thing, move on to the match or move on to the next segment. Like when people talk and go on and on, and like this, we're the day and age where people's attention span is very, very small, and they get that point across up there a lot, and like that's why like all the like Instagram, like shows are a minute or less long on Instagram, Twitter too, like a minute or less, and you can get a lot out of a minute. So like on the indies, like before WWE on the indies, I would get on the mic and it'd be like 4 or 5 minutes because I'm thinking I'm getting good heat and I'm going on and on because the crowd's booing, but I can get the same message over in 2 minutes or less and get the same heat or even more heat because less is more than I did in that 5 minutes with 2 minutes.
Is the James Ellsworth character a natural face or a heel?
Well, when I first came in, natural baby face, underdog, doesn't look like the rest of the guys, not big, not, it was a natural baby face at first. And once the character started progressing and I was with Carmella, like, I just really wanted to be a heel. Like, I just felt like, man, if I'm going to be with a heel, I want to be a heel too. Like, the whole story's supposed to be she's using me and to get wins and, she's manipulating me, which is fine, but it glass is half full there. If we're both heels and I'm helping her cheat and I'm feeling myself, like, I'm feeling like, I'm hanging out with this hot chick and I should be because I'm hot too. And like, and as it progressed, and especially after Money in the Bank, like it got real good there for a minute where her and I were both heels and we're getting good heat. And, there was a good month or two where it was really, really good stuff. And, But yeah, to answer your question, at first, natural babyface. After a while there, natural heel. And like on the indies right now, I can do either. Like, when I get booked on shows, I'm fine with doing both. I'm trying to do more of a heel gimmick right now overall with the Andy Kaufman stuff with the intergender title.
Amazing,
so
by
that
the way.
character's naturally heel. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, we've got a ton of questions about that. Petey, what else do you have?
The one, so I just want to make a comment, and maybe you could elaborate on it, James. So it feels like WWE I don't know, it seems like every few years, it could be 2, it could be 4 years, they have a character not similar to yours, but a character like yours that is so out of the realm of what you would expect out of the WWE that it works. Like, you go back and you take somebody like a Eugene, like a mentally challenged wrestler. That's so unheard of, but it worked for a little bit. And then what's another one? Like a Santino Marella, like that underdog came from Italy, and then beat Umaga for the Intercontinental title, and then he evolved into a comedy character. But then eventually he turned heel. Same with Eugene, he turned heel, and then you turned heel. So I feel like, and do you feel the same way? This unique character that they always build that's so like different than what's going on in WWE. It works, but just for a little bit, because then the people are kind of like, I don't know if we like it anymore. It's not as cool, and then that's where the heel turn comes in. Is that how you feel?
Yes and no. Like, yes, like people get tired of things real quickly in general these days. So you do have to evolve characters more quickly than you did 15, 20 years ago. Like with my character, the babyface character, I feel like they could have stayed babyface for a little longer. I feel like being an underdog and the perception that you're beating the world champion, even though it was all fluke victories and all, gaga stuff, like the perception to the fans is this little dude is beating AJ Styles, the greatest wrestler in the world. And a lot of people didn't like that. So right away, I went from being an underdog to beating the world champ, and kind of, to me, like if they would have just beat me, in matches for a couple of months and I get a big win out of nowhere, then you could have got more of a babyface run out of that character, and you could have got going back to what you're saying, it would have lasted longer than it did, and you could have got more out of it. But yeah, like the Eugene and the Santinos and all, you have to evolve those characters. They can't be, Santino, he had a long, nice run. He looked like a wrestler. He was in good shape. And Eugene too. Those guys were different for me because they both were, in good shape and looked like wrestlers. Like the James Ellsworth character, what separates that character from them is he just looks like a regular dude, really trying to wrestle and trying hard. And he'll step up to Braun Strowman even though he doesn't have a chance, and he thinks he can get in the ring with the world champion. But yeah, people, again, it goes back to attention spans. You have to evolve like a character, I think, especially this day and age.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah.
I many times on Twitter, I would see people tweet, or your name would pop up where they'd say, I don't know why James Ellsworth is letting WWE do this to him. They're degrading him, making him look funny. It's a joke. I stood up and said, and I think it's right, but correct me if I'm wrong, but WWE basically is prolonged your life on the indie circuit now. I don't know how your bookings are now, but I hear that you're doing very well. The WWE bump has definitely pushed your indie career, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I have nothing at all bad to say about WWE. Like, do I feel like the character had more legs there? Yeah, absolutely. But that doesn't mean those legs there have to be right now. Like, to me, absence makes the heart grow fonder. If I go and WWE run did help the indies. Like, I have more bookings than ever. I'm making more money than I've ever made, obviously, because of the run. So the run was a blessing. If somebody would have told me when I did the Strowman things, like, hey, kid, this thing's going to lead to a 16-month run, with WWE, and then you'll go back to the indies, I would have been ecstatic. I always think about that. What would I have thought if they would have told me that day you're going to get 16 months with WWE out of this, then you're going to go back to indies, people are going to be booking you all the time. Like, I'm booked solid for months, and it's because of the run. And but do I think there's more to do with WWE for the character? Absolutely. But I mean, right now they took me away, and imagine if I come back, it's going to be a bigger reaction than if I would have just stayed longer,
Now,
Yeah, and speaking of reactions, so James, we were on a show like last month or January or something for Destiny up in Toronto, and when you came out, your reaction was so ridiculously loud. I mean, we had on this, like we had Austin Aries on the show, we had like Elgin, we even had Pete Dunne on the show, and you by far blew them all out of the water. I just had to throw that out there. I didn't know where I was going with that, but your reaction, like you said, was huge. Now, do you get going back to like your hometown Baltimore, and when you go and see all the boys that you kind of came up with and stuff like that, and there might have been some guys that you thought like, oh, this guy's going to be the next guy that WWE signs or whatever the case may be. Do you get heat? Do you get a little bit of heat from the boys? Because I remember like when I went back after I made my TV appearances and stuff like that, people were like, oh, you think you're a big shot now, even though I didn't even say anything. Do you get the same like kind of joking heat from your boys?
Oh yeah, the tongue in cheek stuff. Yeah, hey, what's up, superstar, and all. It's just
exactly
tongue in cheek. I don't think it's I don't take any of it seriously. Like I always have been, always will be a down to earth dude that just loves this business and just having fun. But yeah, when I see the guys like you're saying, hey, what's up, superstar? How was WrestleMania? Or how was Madison Square Garden? Or just I would ask them the same questions if they did it. So it's all in fun.
I can actually say you are down to earth. Petey and I were at the Kobo show during, I believe it was Hell in a Cell. You and Shelton Benjamin walk in the back, and I turned into a little 12-year-old boy. I'm like, Petey, it's James Ellsworth. Petey's like, just let him be. Don't go talk to him. But I'm watching you, and you're shaking everybody's hand, and you're talking to people, and I've seen some of the older guys come through, well-established, that don't do the backstage etiquette like you do. How was that taught to you?
Well, Axel Rotten's ECW original. He was my trainer, and he I don't know, Petey, you probably were around him. You've probably been in locker rooms with him.
I didn't know Axel trained you. Okay, yeah. Yeah,
and he was always a fun-loving guy that just loved it, and just you shake everybody's hand, and you say hi, and dude, like at the end of the day, like to me, this is just how I feel personally, nothing to do with Axel or anybody. Personally, I feel like we're all human. Like, nobody's above anybody. Like, you have good people in this world, and you have bad people in this world. If someone's good to me, I'm always good to them. If someone's bad to me, I distance myself from them. So I treat everybody the same. Like, I'm nice to everyone until, like, someone's not nice to me, and I just literally walk away from the situation. But, yeah, like, in this wrestling thing, like, it's, I don't ever feel like I'm above anyone, and never will. It's just we do this is what we all love. It doesn't matter what level we're at. Like that night you're talking about in Detroit, I went back there to see some friends, and then all the police there, I was like, oh, make sure I'm going to shake everybody's hand, and why not? Like they're doing the same thing I'm doing, and and they're trying to make it. I know how it feels.
Pete, I know I've got at least two more questions. How about you?
Yeah, go ahead, Dennis. Go ahead.
So I have to ask you. Let's talk about this intergender belt, and it definitely inspired by Andy Kaufman. How did you come up with the idea to revive this?
Well, there's a couple of things I did on TV were with the girls. I was, get bumped by them a lot. Then ultimately it led to Becky and I having a match, which, like, we never thought we were going to have. We pushed for that match, pushed for it, and like, it's out of the blue. It just finally kind of happened. Like, the day, we didn't know that we were going to have that match until the day before. They just kind of texted us both saying, hey, start a little Twitter war, and you guys are going to have a match tomorrow. I'm like, huh? Like I was on like a leash with Carmella, like I was doing like nothing, like just walking around being Carmella's little lackey, and which was cool. Which that like I was anxious to see where that was going. We never got to the ending of that story, like like with the whole leash, and like there was no ending to it. They just kind of took it off out of nowhere, put me in the ring with Becky. We had a fun match that everybody that seemed to enjoy, and that's what led me to this intergender title. I'm like, well, the last couple of, since Money in the Bank, people just remember me for, messing with the girls. So why not continue that on the independents? I could have went to the independents and been James Ellsworth, any man with two hands has a fighting chance, and it would have been, well and good, and I would have got booked still. But like the intergender title, it's throwing that spice onto it. You know, it throws a little bit of spice onto the character and gives people a different thing on a show. You can go to a show and see me wrestle. Like, I have matches with Emma coming up, Tennille Dashwood. I have matches with Victoria coming up, and like, you know, and other various girls, and that's just a different thing on a show. And, you know, you already have, like me, who's, you know, people have seen on television and are coming to the show to see it. Now they're seeing me wrestle a girl, and it's just different than everything else on the show, and it's fun. And, like, you know, I'm not like this big, muscular, like, you know, tall, crazy-looking guy. So if you put me in there with a girl, you think she has a chance to win. You're not like, oh, man, this guy's about to beat up this girl. You're like, man, is James going to beat this girl? Is this girl going to beat James? You don't know. So it's just fun for everyone. And I did enjoy Andy Kaufman. When I was a kid, I had a lot of those. My grandfather had a lot of those, like, Memphis tapes, USWA, and I used to watch that. As a kid, I would just laugh because he's, like, wrestling girls, and he's trying to fight Jerry the King Lawler, who when I was a kid, I saw on Raw, like, doing commentary. And, you know, I always liked that character anyway. So it's fun. I get to do it now.
Go ahead. Can I do a follow up on that one, Dennis?
Yeah.
So you don't have to tell us, James, but you know, it seems like you're really smart of what direction you want this intergender championship and everything to go. In your mind, do you have like a big payoff, like a big ending of you know, where you see this going, or are you just gonna ride it out and see what happens?
Well, right now, I got some ideas for it. It's funny, Tommy Dreamer. I just saw him at Bar Wrestling up in California. It's Joey Ryan's promotion, and which was cool. Joey Ryan does intergender stuff as well, so him and I had a match that night. That was one of the most fun nights I've ever had. Independence. The crowd was just so into it. And Tommy Dreamer, like, he's like, hey, let me see that belt. And I showed him the belt, and he's like, well, you know, James, if you ever go back to WWE, you're going to have to drop this on the indies, so we have it on the indies for people to wrestle. So,
That's so Tommy.
So if that ever happens, and I do go back to WWE, I will drop it to someone so they can have it, like, so it still be on the indies while I'm gone. Like, but other than that, man, like, I just want to wrestle girls for it. And, you know, if it ever gets old, I'll just stop doing it. But right now, people seem to enjoy it. Like, people are tagging me in pictures of them making the title on the WWE video games, and people are like, anytime I put a match graphic up of a girl and I, they're writing real, like, fun things about it. Like, it's getting a lot of positivity right now. And just like with anything else, if that slows down, then I'll figure out what to do with it and just stop doing it. But, you know, as long as it's getting some steam and people are enjoying it, I'm going to continue to do it.
You mentioned future plans. Has any of the other companies, Ring of Honor, Impact, Tommy Dreamer's House of Hardcore, contacted you about maybe an extended run there?
Yeah, there's been small talks with people. I've only been on the indies for a month now. There has been ideas thrown at me, and we'll see what happens. Like, I don't know. I don't know, like, really where I want to go or what I want to do right now. Like, I do feel like, I mean, I did some stuff for the NWA guys. Like, they have the, Billy Corgan just bought NWA. And
yeah, I saw that with Nick there. Yeah, very good stuff.
Yeah, that was good, and there's gonna be more stuff with them, I think, because that went well, and everybody was cool, and we just, Nick's a great guy, and we just had a lot of fun doing all that. And Dave Lagana helps with that, and he was real cool, and so the NWA thing, I think I'm gonna be sticking with that. But as far as the other companies go, man, like, I'm willing to try anywhere and do anything, and I think, like, the fans, like, they just, like, at WWE, the James Ellsworth character always got a reaction, whether it was, good or bad, or, like, as long as you're getting a reaction, and Petey knows this, I'm sure, like, as long as you're getting a reaction, that's all that matters, whether it's, cheers, boos, or whatever, as long as people are making noise. So, like, I'm willing to go anywhere and see if people make noise for the character, and if they're making a lot of noise, I'm willing to stay there and keep at it. It just, I hope I go everywhere and do everything. That's where I hope to be right now, is anywhere, doing anything, and having fun, entertaining people.
And finally, if people want James Ellsworth merch or to find out, where your next dates are, where can people go to find you and follow you on social media?
Well, on Twitter, it's at Real Ellsworth. At Instagram, it's James Ellsworth Wrestling. And then for T-shirts, it's Pro Wrestling Tees /Ellsworth. You can find them on there. And then I run a promotion in Maryland when I have time. I ran a show in February and running one in March. It's Adrenaline Championship Wrestling. Check that out at adrenalinewrestling.com and ACW/pro on Twitter.
There you go. You guys must follow us. James, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy night to talk to two jokers like us.
Thank you
James,
guys. Hope to see you again.
We appreciate it.
Yeah. Are you going to be up at Destiny anytime soon again, or anywhere else? Or
I was just at Destiny this past Sunday. I got a show in South Bend coming up, and then I'm heading back to Impact. And speaking of Impact, you know what the rumors are going to be now? Now that you're on a podcast with an Impact guy, Ellsworth is going to Impact, So let the rumors begin, I guess. I don't know.
Right. Right now, I don't, the honest thing is, I don't know what's going on. I don't know where I'm going to wind up, but I am willing to talk to anybody and try anything. And, I just want to entertain people. I'm just one of those guys that hasn't forgotten that the fans are the most important thing. They're the ones paying their money, come see us. And some of them, it's hard for them to pay that money, but they're doing it, and you gotta give them a good show. And dude, after every WWE show, I would go sign for them. In the airports, I would always sign for them. Hotels, I never will forget they're the most important thing.
The James Ellsworth podcast coming soon.
Possibility. We'll see about that too.
All right, James. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.